Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question comes to us from a viewer, thanks to Cameron Moon for this one. Nick controls an animated Gideon, the Oathkeeper. Amy wants to play an Imposter Mech and have it enter as a copy of Gideon. What will the stats of the mech be when she does this, and what will they be if she animates the mech? Alright, so first I want to acknowledge that it's not going to be possible for this to happen during normal gameplay. We would need some way to either play the mech on another player's turn or animate the Gideon on another player's turn, neither of which is going to be possible without a little bit of help. I'll let everybody discuss in the comments what their favorite ways to do this might be, but for now I'm only going to focus on the results of this situation without considering what we would have to do in order to get there. I think you'll all agree there's plenty of interesting stuff going on that we don't have to worry about that little detail for now. Now, the first thing that we're going to need is this important fact about copy effects. They do not copy any counters that already exist on the thing that they're copying, nor do they copy any other types of continuous effects that are acting on the thing. Basically, you can imagine it kind of like this. We're going to take that Gideon and put it on a copy machine, and then we're going to hit the copy button. Whatever it spits out, we're going to paste that directly on top of the mech. Okay, well, not exactly like that. So if we take a look at the wording on Imposter Mech, we'll see that its copy effect uses the special word except. That indicates that we're going to deal with an exception or a modification to the copying process. So we're not just going to blindly paste on whatever the copy machine spits out. Rather, what we're going to do is we're going to take what it spits out and then use our Sharpie to edit it so that it matches what the Imposter Mech says, and then we're going to paste it on top of the Imposter Mech. So that would mean that after we're done applying the copy effect, we're going to have the characteristics of the mech looking kind of like this. Alright, so a couple of things that I wanted to point out about this. First of all, let's notice that it says on the Imposter Mech's copy ability that it's going to lose all of its other card types. So that means that it's not going to be a Planeswalker. Doing so also means that we're not going to be a Gideon either, because if you lose a card type, that means you're also going to lose any associated subtypes. So that means that we're just going to be an artifact vehicle. We're still legendary because changing an object's types or subtypes does not affect the supertypes, which is what legendary is, at all. Snow and basic are also supertypes if you're curious. Do with that information whatever you will. So now that we've got that sorted out, let's turn our attention to another really interesting question. That being, how many loyalty counters is the Imposter Mech going to have on it when it enters the battlefield? So I think it's pretty well known that if you have something entering the battlefield as a copy of a Planeswalker, you're usually going to get a number of loyalty counters equal to the starting loyalty for that Planeswalker. However, that's not actually going to happen here because we've got a little bit of an unusual situation going on. You see, the Imposter Mech is not going to be a Planeswalker, like we talked about before. And so one of the consequences of that is that the rule that lets you get loyalty equal to your starting loyalty is actually written in such a way that it only applies to Planeswalkers. Because we do not have a Planeswalker entering the battlefield here, that means that this rule is not going to be able to apply, and it's not going to give any loyalty to the Imposter Mech, even though the Imposter Mech does have a starting loyalty number. Pretty trippy, right? Now, normally, when you've got a Planeswalker that's on the battlefield with no loyalty on it, then it's going to be put into its owner's graveyard as a state-based action. However, fortunately, like we said before, the Imposter Mech is not going to be considered a Planeswalker when it's on the battlefield, and so that means that it's going to be safe. However, there are a couple of other state-based actions that we're going to need to be careful of, though. For starters, let's remember that we said the Imposter Mech is going to be legendary, and the legend rule only looks at the card's name, which is something that does get copied when you do a copy effect. So that would mean that if Amy were to play her own copy of Gideon the Oathsworn, then she would have a situation where she has two legendary permanents that both have the same name. Accordingly, the legend rule would kick in and make her choose one to keep, the rest would be put into her graveyard. There's another state-based action that could be kind of dangerous for us also. Let's note that the Imposter Mech has no toughness. That's because Gideon the Oathkeeper, as printed, does not have any toughness. Remember, we don't copy any continuous effects that are acting on Gideon, and that's where the 5/5 power and toughness that it had when it got copied came from. So that's not going to be able to get copied onto the Imposter Mech. The Imposter Mech itself has a printed power and toughness of 3/1. However, that is not going to be with us anymore because we pasted over it when we applied the copy effect. So that means that there's not going to be anything that defines a power and a toughness for this card. Now, ordinarily that's going to be okay because just like it isn't a planeswalker, it also isn't a creature when it's on the battlefield. At least not yet. However, there are a couple of things that I can think of that might cause the Imposter Mech to turn into a creature. So let's take a look at how some of those might work. First of all, we got the Crew 3 ability when we applied the copy effect, so maybe Amy might think that she would want to activate that ability. However, as we're about to see, that's probably not a great idea. The reason is because if you take a look at the definition for crew in the comprehensive rules, it actually does not define a power and toughness for the creature. Pretty much all vehicles have a power and toughness printed on them, and so that means that when the crew ability resolves, there's no need for it to give a power and toughness to the creature. However, we're dealing with a really interesting situation here where that's not the case. So if this crew ability were to resolve, then it would turn the Imposter Mech into an artifact creature. However, we still would have that same situation where there's no power and toughness defined for it. In this case, the game rules define a default power and toughness of 0/0, which of course means that the Imposter Mech will be put into its owner's graveyard for having 0 toughness. Well, that was pretty sad. If only there were some other way that we could animate this card. And of course, if you're looking at the card, then you probably are thinking about that +2 ability. But would we be able to activate this ability at all? I mean, it's a loyalty ability, and we just said a couple of times that the Imposter Mech is not going to be a planeswalker. That's true, however, if you take a look at the rule in the comprehensive rules that defines how loyalty abilities works, you'll see something extremely interesting. Unlike the rule that puts planeswalkers with 0 loyalty into their owner's graveyards, and even the rule that gives planeswalkers loyalty as they're entering the battlefield, this one is not worded in such a way where it only applies to planeswalkers. Even though this is a loyalty ability because it has a loyalty symbol in it, anything that has a loyalty ability can activate it. It doesn't need to be a planeswalker. Now, we're still going to have to respect all the normal restrictions that come with loyalty abilities. For example, we can only activate at sorcery speed, and we can only get 1 activation per turn. So unfortunately, our hopes of activating the +2 a bunch of times and then exiling all our opponent's creatures are going to get cut short a little bit here. But hey, I still think it's pretty cool that we would be able to activate it at all, don't you? So if we activate this ability, what are the characteristics of the Imposter Mech going to be? Alright, so first of all, let's note that we do have a power and toughness setting continuous effect as part of this animation effect. That's good news because it means we're not going to be stuck in that same awkward situation from last time where we turned into a creature but we didn't have any power and toughness defined for us. This time we do have a power and toughness defined at 5/5, so that's what it's going to be. I feel like the being 5/5 and the becoming white shouldn't really be that controversial. However, I did want to call some attention to the type line and point something else that's kind of interesting out. If you take a look, you can see that we're still going to be an artifact vehicle. Why is that? You might already know that anytime you have a continuous effect that sets something's card type to something specific, then generally that means that we're going to be overriding all the other card types that that object might have. However, this ability has a special phrase on it. Notice that Gideon's +2 includes the phrase, "It's still a planeswalker." Now, that might not seem super relevant right now because the Imposter Mech is not a planeswalker. However, there is one very important consequence that this phrase has. Even though it's not going to make the Gideon/Imposter Mech into a planeswalker, what it is going to do is allow it to keep all of the other card types that it used to have when that continuous effect sets its card type to creature. So that means that we will indeed still be an artifact, and because we didn't change anything about the artifact type, we're going to also be remaining a vehicle. Now that is some really awesome stuff. Alright, so there's one other really awesome thing about this situation. When we animate the Imposter Mech this way, the "it's still a planeswalker" does not mean that it gains the planeswalker type. It just means that it gets to keep all the types that it still had. Now, what that means is that we're still not a planeswalker. And what that means is that we're still not a Gideon. And if you haven't put 2 and 2 together yet, that means that when we attack with the Imposter Mech, the game is going to consider it to not be a Gideon creature, which means that it will count as one of the 2 not Gideon creatures that are required in order for its triggered ability to put a +1/+1 counter on your attacking creatures. Now, I thought that was extremely awesome, don't you? And that is all I have with this situation. Whew, that was a lot of stuff going on. So let's go through a brief recap in order to make sure that everybody is on the same page. If you manage to play an Imposter Mech copying an opponent's Gideon, then its characteristics are going to look something sort of like this while it's on the battlefield. It will not get any loyalty counters as it's entering the battlefield. However, you still would be able to activate its loyalty abilities. The legend rule is still going to apply to it, and it still is going to be put into its owner's graveyard for having 0 toughness if it turns into a creature. Now, that means you would not want to crew it, because if you crew it, its power and toughness will be undefined, so that will be considered 0/0 by the game. However, if you use the +2 ability to animate it, then that's going to work just like it normally would, and it's going to make your Imposter Mech stats look like this. You would be able to attack with it, and it would count as a non-Gideon creature when it's attacking. Whew, that is a lot of stuff. Give yourselves a big pat on the back if you were able to follow through all the way and get all the subtleties of this ruling. That's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.